Hi, I'm Dr. Lauren Prover. I'm an admissions expert with BeMo Academic Consulting. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of BeMo's Admissions Vlog. Today, I'll be going over our top 8 strategies for preparing for and acing your multiple mini interview. Let's get started. The multiple mini interview, commonly abbreviated to MMI, is one of the most dreaded interview formats. This is because the actual questions are less predictable than traditional or panel type interviews. Each mini interview has a different question type, and applicants find it hard to prepare for them. First, realize that the multiple mini interview is essentially an in-person Casper test. Both of these admission screening protocols were created by McMaster University, a public university in Canada. This is important to note because although different universities may have slightly different combinations of question types, they all share the same principles created by McMaster. Now I'd like to give you some of the strategies we developed at BeMo based on our experience helping hundreds of students ace their MMI each year. The approach to the MMI involves a similar strategy to those that we discussed in a previous post on Student Doctor Network. I encourage you to read those strategies before watching these videos, as I won't go into the details again. 1. Understand the MMI process. It is important to understand how you are being evaluated before you start preparing for the MMI. McMaster publicly shares the interview manual, which can be found on their website. Importantly, note that interviewers are instructed to grade each response based on 3 things. A. Your communication skills. B. The strength of your arguments. And C. Your suitability for the profession. 2. Learn to manage stress. Nothing is worse than feeling so nervous when you walk into an interview room that you can't even formulate a coherent response. Yet, one of the most common reasons that students fail their MMI is precisely the inability to control their stress levels. Recall that you're being assessed based on your communication skills. Unless you have your stress levels in check, you won't be able to express yourself articulately. Here are some short and long-term strategies to manage stress. First, prepare well in advance using realistic and timed mock interviews, preferably with expert feedback to identify your weaknesses. The act of preparation in and of itself will help to boost your confidence because preparation removes fear of the unknown. Second, develop strategies to cope with stress during the actual interview. For example, try deep breathing exercises between your station. Alternatively, maintain a dominant body posture by stretching out your shoulders and stretching your arms out really wide and holding it for 5 seconds. Everyone is different, so you'll have to figure out what works for you. Whatever you choose, practice it consistently during your mock interview so that the routine comes naturally on interview day. 3. Read each prompt at least twice. Make sure you take the time to read each prompt outside the interview room at least twice. If you rush, you are more likely to miss key information and end up delivering a poor or even judgmental response. Remember, you usually have 1 to 2 minutes to read each prompt and between 6 and 8 minutes to deliver a response. In practice, an organized and concise response should take no longer than 3 to 4 minutes. This means you'll have extra time inside and can afford to take an extra minute or 2 to formulate a response. If you do enter the room late, make sure that you briefly apologize for the delay and explain that you wanted a bit more time to gather your thoughts before delivering a response. This would actually put you ahead of your competition because it shows careful thought and deliberation even in high-stress situations. 4. Use the primacy effect to your advantage. It goes without saying that once you enter the interview room, you have to smile, make good eye contact, and maybe even shake hands, all before you deliver your response. This is something that students often miss. They're too nervous to remember that the MMI is actually also a test of their professionalism. Interestingly, your interviewer is more likely to remember the first things that you say and do, rather than anything that happens after. This is a well-documented principle in psychiatry known as the primacy effect. 5. Master your nonverbal communication skills. There's ample evidence in the literature that humans more frequently communicate with nonverbal cues and body language than verbal cues. This includes using eye contact effectively, smiling genuinely, and maintaining a confident body posture. There's a comprehensive article on Psychology Compass summarizing the science of body language. I encourage you to go and review that article prior to your MMI. 6. Provide your response using the same strategies we discussed in Casper. In case you haven't read our post on Student Doctor Network about Casper preparation, here's a brief overview. Similarly to Casper, to do well in your MMI, you must A. Remain non-judgmental at all times. B. Gather all the missing facts. C. Identify who is directly and indirectly impacted by your decisions. D. Identify the question type and prepare your course of action before you enter the room. And E, provide the most rational and common sense solution to the problem that causes the least amount of harm using an if-then approach. 7, get comfortable with awkward silences. Remember, this is a test of your communication skills more than anything else. After all, that's the hallmark of an excellent doctor. A great physician can convey complex ideas in simple and concise terms. If you're being concise, you're likely to finish your response before the time is up. If the interviewer doesn't have any follow-up questions, you'll need to get comfortable with the awkward silence that ensues. A common mistake that students make is to continue rambling until the buzzer sounds, rather than bringing their response to a firm conclusion. As a result, they end up displaying poor time management and communication skills. Don't forget to say your goodbyes. Remember when we talked about the primacy effect earlier? Your second best friend for the MMI is the recency effect. The recency effect, another well-documented phenomenon in psychology, states that people are more likely to remember the last bit of information mentioned than anything mentioned during the body of the conversation. Therefore, it is critical that you walk out of the interview room leaving a positive impression. It's not rocket science. Smile, thank the interviewer for their time, and politely say goodbye before exiting the interview room. So that concludes another episode of BeMo's Admissions Vlog. If you're looking for more tips on preparing for your MMI, check out our blog. We have a lot of great resources. If you're looking for help with MMI preparation or interview prep, click the link below to set up your free initial consultation with BeMo today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all again next week.